Hey, everybody, welcome back to Spark Sessions. I am your host, Lori Tyler. And today we are talking about something that makes a few marketers uncomfortable, which is the topic of personal branding. And I feel like I can already hear some of you groaning and you're thinking, yeah, no thanks. But I think that's because when people hear personal brand, they picture somebody posting on LinkedIn every day, like, here are the top 10 lessons I learned from my morning coffee, or their posts that start with, I was rejected 47 times, but look at me, I'm a CEO now. And you're like, okay, good for you, but that is not what we're doing here. So let's reset for a second because personal branding, especially for B2B marketers, actually has nothing to do with becoming an influencer. It's about something so much simpler. It's about just being known for something valuable. And that matters a lot more than people realize if you really want to grow your career inside of an organization or move into leadership or, just have more influence in the room. But here's the thing. Whether you realize it or not, you already have a personal brand at work. You just might not be controlling it. So here's the simplest way to think about it. Your personal brand is simply what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's it. So imagine that you're not there and somebody says, hey, who should we talk to about this marketing strategy? Or who really understands what's happening with our pipeline or who can explain this marketing data in a way that the leadership team will actually understand. Someone's name pops into their head. Someone's name is spoken in the room. And what's interesting is that inside of every company, those names become known pretty well. I don't care how big your organization is. There's always someone who's known as the analytics person. And there's always someone who's known as the strategy person. And there's always someone who's known to overcomplicate things, quite honestly. That's personal branding. The people who end up moving into leadership roles over time, they've always been known for something positive. So I feel really passionate about this topic. I feel like it's particularly important for marketers because marketers is just one of those weird professions when it comes to visibility, because you could be doing really incredible work. You can be launching campaigns and driving traffic and generating leads and helping shape positioning. And half the company still thinks marketing is, you know, the people who make things nice. And if you've worked in marketing long enough, you know exactly what I mean. There's always that moment in a meeting where somebody says something like, well, marketing can just send an email about it. Like, sure, okay. Because apparently email solves everything, you know? But the marketers who start changing that perception inside their organizations, they usually do one thing differently. They start sharing how they think about marketing. So, not just the work, but the actual thinking behind the work. And I actually remember this moment that really clearly came about, in my early career. I was in a meeting where people were talking about leads, and somebody said something like, we need more leads. You hear it all the time, which if you've been in marketing for more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard it like 4,000 times. But anyway, somebody said something really interesting. They said, actually, our lead volume is fine. The problem is the conversion rate between stages 2 and 3 in the funnel. And suddenly the entire conversation changed. And that person wasn't just talking about marketing activity, they were talking about business performance. And that's when people started listening differently. And that's the beginning of building a personal brand at work. It's when people start associating you with insight. And one thing that I've really noticed about marketers who grow into leadership roles is they're not necessarily the loudest people in the room. They're not necessarily the most outgoing people. They're not even necessarily the most experienced. But what they do consistently is share their thinking. They say things like, here's what I'm noticing in the market right now, or here's something really interesting about this campaign data, or if we take a step back for a second, this might actually be a positioning problem. And when you do that consistently, people start seeing you differently because you're not the person who just executes things. You're the person who connects the dots. And companies value that enormously. So the part where I think that marketers get tripped up a lot is they think that personal branding means they have to suddenly start broadcasting themselves everywhere, like posting every day and commenting on everything and, turn themselves into some kind of marketing personality. And you really don't. You don't have to do all that because personal branding, especially inside of a company, is much, much simpler than that. And it's really about three things: being good at something, talking about what you're seeing, and connecting marketing to the business. That's it. You don't need any inspirational quotes around it. And one of the interesting things, though, about leadership teams in this is that they do notice these things, they notice patterns. And if someone is consistently showing up with really thoughtful insights, people start paying attention. And if someone connects marketing work to revenue, then people start trusting their perspective. And if someone consistently asks smart questions, people start bringing them into bigger conversations. And over time, that's what builds influence. It's not job titles, it's not org charts, it's credibility. So, here's a question that I like to ask marketers sometimes. If someone in your company said, who's the person who really understands marketing strategy here? Would your name come up? Think about it honestly. If not, it's not a criticism. It just means that there's opportunity. Because one of the most powerful things that you can do for your career is to start shaping what you're known for. Maybe it is strategy, maybe it's customer insight, maybe it's storytelling, maybe it's analytics. But when people start associating you with something specific, your influence will grow. And that's usually when your career will start accelerating. So, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, but how do I actually start doing this? Here's something really simple that you can start with. You can start paying attention to the insights that you're having during the week. And that's where you think like, that was interesting. It could be something that you noticed in campaign data, or maybe it's something that a trend that you noticed in the industry. Maybe it's something that a customer said or things that you keep hearing customers say. Like those are all the moments where great marketing thinking starts. And when you start sharing those things, start sharing your insights, and you're doing it in meetings and in conversations, and yeah, maybe sometimes on LinkedIn, you start building a reputation for thoughtful perspective. And that's the foundation for a really strong personal brand. So I'll leave you with this. Personal branding is not about self promotion, it is about clarity. It is about clarity around what you stand for. It's clarity around how you think about marketing and clarity around the value that you bring to the organization. Because the marketers who eventually move into leadership roles, they're always known for something long before they get the title. So, if you start thinking about your career and where you want your career to go, a great question to ask yourself is simply, what do I want to be known for? Because once you answer that question, you can start building towards it. And that's so exciting. And I'm excited for you. So that's it for today. If this got you thinking about your personal brand, about your career in marketing, I am so glad. I'm so excited for you because great careers in marketing don't just happen by accident. They happen when people start thinking really intentionally about the role that they want to play. So, thank you for listening to this episode of Spark Sessions. If you liked this episode, please consider giving a review and subscribing to my channel. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.